Veriscope News. Verified news, clear context. This report covers the latest U.S. residential construction data released on February 18, 2026 by the U.S. Census Bureau and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The data reflects activity through December 2025 and includes updated figures for November. Residential construction is a core component of the U.S. economy. It affects employment, materials demand, household formation, rental supply, mortgage markets, and long-term housing affordability. It also serves as a leading indicator of broader economic momentum because construction activity often responds early to changes in interest rates, credit conditions, and household income. This release includes three primary measures: building permits, housing starts, housing completions. Each measure captures a different stage of the residential construction process. Permits represent authorization to build. Starts represent the beginning of physical construction. Completions represent finished housing units ready for occupancy. All figures are reported at seasonally adjusted annual rates. This method smooths regular seasonal patterns and expresses monthly activity as if that pace continued for a full year. We begin with building permits. In December 2025, privately owned housing units authorized by building permits were at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1,448,000. This was 4.3% above the revised November rate of 1,388,000. However, it was 2.2% below the December 2024 rate of 1,480,000. This indicates a month-over-month increase, but a year-over-year decline. Within the December total, single-family authorizations were at a rate of 881,000. This was 1.7% below the revised November figure of 896,000. Authorizations for units in buildings with 5 units or more were at a rate of 515,000. For the full year 2025, an estimated 1,425,200 housing units were authorized by building permits. This was 3.6% below the 2024 total of 1,478,000. Permits provide an early signal of future construction activity. A decline on a yearly basis suggests moderation in future pipeline supply. Next, housing starts. In December 2025, privately owned housing starts were at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1,404,000. This was 6.2% above the revised November estimate of 1,322,000. However, it was 7.3% below the December 2024 rate of 1,514,000. This indicates that construction activity accelerated from November levels but remained lower than the same period 1 year earlier. Single-family housing starts in December were at a rate of 981,000. This was 4.1% above the revised November figure of 942,000. Units in buildings with 5 units or more were at a rate of 402,000. For the full year 2025, an estimated 1,358,700 housing units were started. This was 0.6% below the 2024 total of 1,367,100. The annual decline in starts was modest compared with the decline in permits. Now, housing completions. In December 2025, privately owned housing completions were at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1,525,000. This was 2.3% above the revised November estimate of 1,490,000. It was 0.1% below the December 2024 rate of 1,527,000. This indicates that completions were nearly unchanged from 1 year ago. Single-family housing completions in December were at a rate of 1,023,000. This was 0.1% below the revised November rate of 1,024,000. Units in buildings with 5 units or more were at a rate of 483,000. For the full year 2025, an estimated 1,497,800 housing units were completed. This was 7.9% below the 2024 total of 1,626,900. The decline in completions is larger than the decline in starts. That difference reflects the lag between groundbreaking and final delivery. Construction timelines vary by project type. Multi-family buildings typically require more time than single-family homes. Now we place these numbers in broader context. Over the past decade, residential construction has moved through multiple cycles. It expanded steadily through the late 2010s, it slowed during early pandemic disruptions, it accelerated during the housing demand surge that followed, it moderated as interest rates rose. Higher mortgage rates tend to reduce buyer demand. Reduced demand can limit new project approvals. Developers adjust production levels based on expected sales conditions. The December data reflects this adjustment phase. Month-to-month changes can be irregular. The Census Bureau notes that it can take several months to establish an underlying trend. For building permits, 3 months may be needed to confirm direction. For total housing starts and completions, 6 months may be required. Confidence intervals are also provided with some estimates. When a percentage change includes a range that crosses 0, there is insufficient statistical evidence to conclude that the change differs from 0. This statistical framework is important when interpreting short-term movements. Now we examine the impact channels. First, households. Housing supply influences availability and pricing. When completions increase, more units become available for sale or rent. When permits and starts decline, future supply growth may slow. In December, completions were near year-ago levels, while permits and starts remained lower year over year. This combination suggests that near-term inventory delivery continued, but pipeline expansion moderated. Second, prices. Home prices are influenced by supply and demand conditions. If supply grows slower than demand, prices may rise. If supply grows faster than demand, price growth may slow. The December figures show moderate pipeline contraction compared with 2024 levels. Third, jobs and labor. Residential construction supports employment in construction trades, materials manufacturing, engineering, and transportation. Higher starts generally support more construction labor demand. Lower permit issuance can signal moderation in future labor needs. Fourth, savings and investment. Housing construction influences financial flows through mortgages, home equity, and building materials supply chains. Changes in construction activity can affect investment spending within gross domestic product calculations. Now we review what experts monitor next. Upcoming releases will provide additional data points. Monthly employment reports provide construction payroll figures. Producer price indexes provide material cost information. Existing and new home sales reports provide demand-side data. Mortgage rate trends provide financing context. These data releases help determine whether December represents stabilization, temporary variation, or a broader directional shift. Now what this means for viewers. The December report shows that residential construction activity increased compared with November levels. However, compared with 1 year ago, activity remained lower in permits and starts, while completions were nearly unchanged. The full year 2025 totals show modest declines in permits and starts and a larger decline in completions. These numbers indicate moderation compared with 2024 levels. They do not indicate abrupt contraction. They reflect adjustment within the housing supply cycle. Now, technical details that support interpretation. All figures are seasonally adjusted annual rates. This means the reported number reflects a projected yearly pace based on that month's activity. It does not mean that exactly 1,448,000 permits were issued in December. It means that if December's pace continued for 12 months, that would be the annual total. The data are subject to revision. Preliminary seasonally adjusted estimates of total building permits, housing starts, and housing completions are revised on average 1.9% or less. Some tables are based on non-probability samples. Others are estimated from sample surveys and are subject to sampling variability and non-sampling error. The total quantity response rate for these estimates is 82.6%. Confidence intervals are calculated at the 90% level. This means that the true change is expected to fall within the reported range 90% of the time. These methodological notes help explain why month-to-month movements should be evaluated carefully. In summary, December 2025 building permits increased from November but remained below December 2024. Housing starts rose month over month but declined from 1 year earlier. Housing completions increased from November and were nearly unchanged from December 2024. For the full year, permits and starts declined modestly compared with 2024, while completions declined more significantly. Residential construction remains a central economic indicator. It connects household formation, employment, investment, and financial markets. Future releases will provide additional confirmation of trend direction. Veriscope News. Verified news, clear context.